do you think like this so-called left, would these people branch away anyway? Let's just say ideally in a true democracy, which we don't have a true democracy. Let's just say that the PSL and the Greens and the Peace and Freedom Party, let's just say that they had 10 to 15% national support. And let's say that the Democrats and the Republicans had maybe a little bit higher notch of support. Would these same figureheads and personalities on YouTube, would they still be supporting the blue team and the red team, or would they actually be in different camps politically?
That is a really good question. I My gut tells me that a lot of these different parties that we're seeing, I don't think all of them are doing it for bad reasons. I think a lot of them are really trying to build coalitions and garner support and strength to start having us have more than the two-party system that we have. And I do commend them for that. The problem that I do see is there have been people within the indie media space that when it was convenient, we're talking about third party, we're talking about, kind of causing a ruckus, to quote AOC, that we're willing to say we need to change up the system. But unfortunately, that was when Trump was president.
Hmm.
When it became the fight between Trump and all of the presidential candidates that we had going up in 2020, that was, I think, really the telltale sign that indie media, at least the prominent indie media voices and spaces that have been created, are not wanting to change the two-party system, because one, it would affect their viewership, which would then affect their monetary gain, and then it would also affect their access. And that's really the key issue, I think, here, is that all of these channels are wanting to retain access to the top, because they hope that they can then get to the top, and then, oh, that's when I'll start speaking the real truth, or that's when I'm going to push for a third party. But unfortunately, from what I've seen and from what my gut tells me, I think that these different parties that are trying to come up, whether good and bad, reasons behind them, I don't think that indie media is going to support them, and I think that they're going to continue to support, unfortunately, Biden, going into 2024. Which for me, I'm just like, I do not understand how that is integrity from that person, because it's just like I could never say that I'm going to continue to support Biden. I've never supported Biden. I didn't support Trump. I don't support really any political party anymore, because it's a complete distraction, and it's a complete lie. I mean, I don't, like you said, I don't think we have a democracy. I don't think that a lot of our votes really count for anything. We see poll after poll after poll. Americans don't want to be in the war. Americans don't want Biden to run, even on the Democratic side. But when we have indie media voices that have garnered so much of their celebrity from pretending to be rebels and pretending to kind of toe the line, there, it's like when you're still accepted in mainstream media, it means you're not as indie as you're proclaiming to be. And even with like Marianne Williamson, and Robert Kennedy Jr., that they're now talking about, I think it's just a lot of clickbait. I think they're just trying to make it look like this is what they're going to do, but at the end of the day, they're going to side with the DNC and who they put up. And unfortunately, I do think that, Williamson and Kennedy are just kind of continued distractions,
Hmm.
because the DNC is not going to take their candidacies, I think, seriously. And I think that's the point. I think it's to act like, oh, look at these two people we're thinking of. But at the end of the day, they're just going to continue to push Biden and Kamala, which to me is by far the scariest option of those three, because we see Biden's declining cognitive health,
Hmm.
um, and there's a lot of corruption that we're seeing within the Biden family, and then also, just this constant push with Trump. Um, I did say in one of my videos that I think that Democrats are going to lose. I think that they're the red wave that we didn't see in 2020 as much, but it was still there. Like people act like it wasn't a red wave because Biden won, but it very much was. If you look at the more like state,
Hmm.
um at the state level, there's been a lot of shift of to the red, and it's not because everyone's a racist, it's not because everyone's a white supremacist, it's just because they're seeing what's happening, and that they don't want a Biden presidency. And I think there's also the concern of what would a Kamala Harris presidency look like, and that to me is the scariest one of them all, because she does not seem to have a good head on her shoulders. She seems very emotionally flippant. She doesn't seem to do well with others. She doesn't play well. She doesn't take criticism well. And a president needs to be able to take criticism. All of these political speakers need to be willing to take heat and backlash for the things that they say and that they do, or the things that they don't say and don't do, because that's the right that we have as citizens of this country. That's where freedom of speech comes from. This is our ability to hold these members of these political parties, that hold their feet to the fire, because they work for us. It's not the other way around. And that's where voters have just been so disenfranchised over the last probably like 2 or 3 decades of just acting like, oh, they're the experts. They know what they're doing. We're just going to let them handle it. And it's like, no, they are not experts. They're just paid really well to get, told what to say. They're following specific lines, and they're working for their own capitalistic gain, as we see with all of these both party corrupt politicians using insider trading for all the different stock trades that happened at the beginning of the pandemic, the CARES Act, doing trillions of dollars of wealth being funneled up to the top. These politicians deserve to be critiqued. We have every right to be saying what they need to be discussing and what they shouldn't be discussing. And that's where I find indie media just getting so incredibly sad, because that's what they kind of started out with. They were going against Trump. And I was 100% like, thank you. I appreciate that you're being adversarial to Trump. But then when Biden came along and all of that adversarial nature went away, that's where I was just like, oh, hell no, like, F this. Like, this is so hypocritical, because you're not doing the thing that you said you were willing to do, which was calling out the structures of power. And that's what we need now. We need people that are willing to speak to those powers that be, as scary as honestly that can be, because they can cancel, they can come after you, and Lord knows where things are going to go from here with like AI technology and things like that. Yeah, sorry, I'm kind of rambling, but like that's
No,
that's
you're not
just kind
rambling at
of
all.
that's just kind of where I see indie media. Unfortunately, I think they're going to leave a lot of people in the dust, very similar to kind of like what happened with Bernie. I think indie media created this huge coalition of people that were looking for something refreshing, different takes, different perspectives, seeing voices that they would have never have seen on mainstream media, and also on YouTube, just because there are so many options when it comes to YouTube. It's trying to find these different voices that are extremely unique and authentic. And unfortunately, indie media is, like I said earlier, they're starting to pull up the ladders. They don't want to bring anyone else, because they want to retain their status and their club that they've now created. And unfortunately, it's going to create more echo chambers of specific narratives that they're going to push. And ultimately, they're just going to turn into mainstream media, but on YouTube.